This is the American Indians, Indigenous Peoples' Truce. Justice for all, the most dangerous show on media anywhere. OCO and greetings. I'm Winter Nightwolf, and this is the Indigenous Peoples' Truce. The real story about Native America and what happened to us. I see my executive producer sitting over there smiling. Hey, Sandra. And, oh, my goodness.
You're so used to saying that. But halito, everyone. I'm Les Fry. I am the producer of the show, the executive producer of the show. And I'm sitting in for Sandra tonight. So we have a great show this evening.
Thank you. First of all, my brother, Don Walker, is not with us tonight to do the news. Leslie, I think we have a couple of stories. You want to start off?
Sure, I do. First of all, I just want to wish everybody a happy Pride. This is Pride Month 2021. I mean, normally these festivities are taking place right now, but with COVID being in place, you know, everybody's pretty much enjoying a virtual Pride. But we want to give a special welcome or shout out to our Two-Spirit community who are celebrating and all the allies who support them.
Absolutely. I have a story that I want to mention, and I think, Leslie, you and I can talk about this. Canadians demand action from officials as country mourns discovery of a mass grave of children's remains. It's the Kamloops Indian School, residential school, which was actually one of the worst things that ever happened to our children. And let me give you some background on the boarding schools. The U.S. government demanded to, quote unquote, civilize Native people. And one of the greatest travesties that ever happened to our children is that the U.S. government would kidnap our children and send them away to these boarding schools, sometimes 2,000-3,000 miles away from where they lived. And their whole thing was to make little white people out of Native children. They got them to the boarding schools, they cut their hair, put them in European clothing, and if they dare spoke their language, they would wash their mouths out with soap and beat them. But that's not the worst part of it. They found 215 children buried near the school in Canada.
Underneath the school.
Underneath the school. Indigenous Indians, leaders, and residential school survivors in Canada are calling on officials to do a thorough investigation of every former residential school in Canada after the remains of more than 200 children were found on the grounds of the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. I've covered this so many times over the years. We're at Carlisle Indian School here in the United States, Pennsylvania. They would beat these children and sometimes murder these children. They would rape the little girls, and even some of the priests would rape the little boys. And their cover up was to kill them. And they uncovered all of these mass graves. So this is nothing new to us, the American Indian or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. That was another one of their ways of trying to get rid of us, a form of genocide. Nothing new about that. But the Canadian government, they have yet to apologize to our people for what they allowed to happen. And the same in the United States. When George W. Bush was in office, he issued an apology tagged onto a defense budget bill. But he didn't tell the Indians that there was a government apology. So, to my Black brothers and sisters, if you think you had it bad here in America, just think about 112 million of us in what we know as the United States. By the time the 1930s rolled around, they had murdered all but 1 million of 112 Indian people. Genocide. So,
Can I?
Go
I
ahead.
would like to say something. I think what is really sad here is the disrespect of burying these children, one, in a mass grave. And, think about that. These children were dumped in that grave. That grave obviously was open. It was open all the time. It was open for this. If you're thinking 215, more than 200 bodies in a mass grave, it wasn't that they took a dump truck and they did that. They obviously had this open at some point all the time to put those children in those graves. And underneath the school, it was hiding it. They were hiding it. They didn't give them a marker. They didn't tell their parents. They didn't let the government know. And can I just say, this is something that the Catholic Church overlooked. Once again, this was sanctioned by the Catholic Church. Now, I think about just how horrific this is. It breaks my heart to think that these children are not at peace. And I just recently read that they are petitioning the Canadian government right now to actually go in and to find out who these children are, find out who their people are. So, we will continue to look at this. We will continue to keep, abreast of this, but it just breaks my heart thinking that just these little kids, these little babies, taken away from their home, not being able to see their parents anymore, taken away from their people, and then put in such horrific settings. And as you said once before, the policy was to save the man and kill the savage. So anything that represented their native language, the native ways, it was killed out of them. Imagine, killed.
And these were children as young as 4 years old, babies.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you imagine these parents on the reservations and the white agents coming in there? Notice I said white agents, and telling them you're going to have to give up your child. I just couldn't fathom that. So anyway, I needed to let all of you know what we've gone through, and it's crazy. So thank you very much for listening to us tonight, and thank you very much, Leslie, for participating in this.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so we're going to move on, and I have a very special nephew guest tonight. His name is JAURICE, and my dog is in the background agreeing with us. JAURICE, yeah, Sheba. JAURICE was born in Detroit, Michigan, but he grew up in Prince George's County, Maryland, not too far from where I live. His JAURICE, he has native blood. His great grandmother was a full blood Cherokee from Florida. And his great grandfather, who was known as Jack Young, aka Papa Jack, moved to Detroit, Michigan later in his life. So let me welcome, along with all of you, my guest tonight, JAURICE SMILEY. But let me tell you a little more about JAURICE. JAURICE is a highly educated young Black American Indian. Just got his master's degree. And he's the author of this book, TOURIAN. And this book is about a Black female superhero. About time we got one.
Yeah.
See his book? Look at it right here. It's published by Black Gold Publishing.
Yeah.
And when he comes back here, he's gonna have to autograph this book for me.
Of course.
And you're gonna have to get one for Leslie Fry too.
Of course.
Definitely.
Leslie, of course.
You know, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you.
I don't think you knew what you're getting into, Jory. Oh my goodness.
I mean, I'll definitely do it. It's no
doubt about it.
No pressure. No pressure.
no pressure or problems there.
No.
What was that group that made that song in the 70s? No Doubt About It?
No doubt about it.
Yeah. But anyway, JAURICE, welcome to the show, man.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Uncle Jay, or Mr. J for the sake of the stream. I'll call you that.
No, you better call me Uncle Jay.
All right, Uncle. I'll call you that, Uncle Jay.
And here with us is his stepfather. You all know him, and if you say you don't know him, if you listen to the show, then you're lying. My music was written and produced by his stepfather, Vince Hall. Come on, stand up here, man. And Vince Hall.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, Ben.
Leslie, how you doing today?
Hi. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
And Vince Hall is also a Black American Indian, the Piscataway Nation of Maryland. So anyway, I want to talk to you, boy.
All right, Uncle Jay, I'm here to talk.
Okay.
So before we get into the book, JAURICE and I were actually talking, and I know we're going to talk about the book, but one of the things that's important, because it comes in, we have to put this in sequence, is that JAURICE is a competitive gamer. He's a fighter. He was a competitive gamer. I don't know if you're still doing that.
Nope, I'm retired.
Okay, he's retired from competitive gaming. And of course, this is my forte. You know, I love this kind of stuff. So he did fighting games for anybody that's out there in the geek community. What kind of games did you play when you were competing?
Well, I played many games, but the games I honed in on were two particular games. Smash Bros. Wow, I'll show you the classic pictures, but Smash Brothers, particularly a third one called Super Smash Brothers Brawl, and Killer Instinct, which is like this. It's pretty much like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter merged together. It came out in the 90s and they re-released it in 2013. But the 2013 version, I was playing it heavy. I played it a lot. Like I would travel to like Florida, like all across North Carolina, like Jersey, Tennessee, back to home to Maryland. Like I've traveled a lot. I met a lot of great people doing it. And yeah, it kind of ties into like this book in a sense of like who I am and what I do. Wow, like those people in my top picture, I have not seen in years because I don't live in North Carolina anymore. So it's great seeing them. But yeah, like yeah, that was the thing I did. I don't do it anymore. I kind of wanted to focus on like, you know, being an author, you know, and plus the games. I miss the older games, and I'll just leave it at that. I'll just miss the older games. And plus, like I said, I wanted to focus on doing this and, you know, creating this.
Yeah. Well, I was an avid Pac-Man player. I gave the Pac-Man machine so many quarters.
Yeah, Pac-Man was addictive back in the day.
Yeah,
Especially when you went to the store to play it. It used to be in every Walgreens there was a Pac-Man machine.
Yeah, you got it. So
Yeah.
anyway, Jaurice, can we get those pictures back of those guys that he played with?
yeah. Put them up.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of these guys here,
Which one? The top one or bottom one?
both of them. You know what?
Well, okay, the top one, that was like April 2012. I was out in like Greenville, North Carolina, near East Carolina University. Shout out to ECU. And this bottom one, I was in Charlotte. And the thing is, if you look at that bottom picture of the guy to the left of me, like the lab coat, and I'm not lying when I say this, at one point in time, like, because the Smash Brothers games is that Nintendo game, you pick all the Nintendo characters, you beat each other up. The second one's called Melee. At one point in time, that guy to the left of me was the best player in the world that game. Like, no lie, like legit the best player in the world. And like, it was crazy because he would just show up and act like a normal person, but he was just really, really smart and really, really like it was like Mike Tyson is prime mixed with like Mayweather and like Ali, just all rolled into one. He was just Pacquiao just the best of the best, all rolled into one. He knew what you was going to do 20 seconds before you did it, or before you even knew what to do. Like, and so yeah, like, but yeah, I haven't seen him in a long time because again, I haven't lived in North Carolina since like 2016. So.
But why did you retire? Why did you end up retiring? Because I know right now competitive gaming is big. There's a lot of money in it. I mean, there's a whole, ESPN sport department dedicated to that. Yes,
this is true. It's just that for fighting games, the one I prefer the most, there's not a lot of money in fighting games. And because like when you talk about competitive game, you gotta look at other games like shooters like Call of Duty, Fortnite. Like there are kids out there making millions of dollars playing Fortnite. It's not the same fucking game like Street Fighter or Smash Brothers. So because it's a different genre, and it's just I got to a point where I just wasn't satisfied because you gotta understand games like they'll come out like how can I say this? It's like there was Street Fighter 2, then there's Street Fighter 3, Street Fighter 4, and all that. But the difference between each game is kind of crazy, and it got to a certain point where like the difference between the games I wasn't a fan of, and again I kind of wanted to focus on greatness. So
yeah,
focused on school and this.
The reason I asked for those pictures back, those guys would have been great recruits for the United States Marine Corps.
It's funny because one of the people in the picture, I'm not going to point him out, but he actually ended up going to the military. I could, but I'm not because I don't want to put him on blast like that. He actually ended up going to the military.
Okay.
But right. Yeah, I mean, those were my glory days. I played a lot, and I traveled a lot, and I mean,
I will tell you this, Jaurice, they look like a super group of guys to hang with.
Yeah.
I mean, it was some wild stuff back then. But I feel like I could talk for hours about that. And those people, they remember those stories and situations, and just certain people already know, like there was just hilarious moments. And I mean, it was what it is. I mean, it's a part of who I am. I mean, it's not my main focus now, and I can still pick up the phone or use Facebook and message those people and talk to them and everything is fine. It's just it's not my main focus anymore. But I'll always be appreciative of it, and experiences and the money.
What about cosplay?
I used to do that a long time ago too, but again, it's like it wasn't really my thing. I now know people who like they, and should I explain what cosplay is?
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, it's when you're spending like $80, $90 to look like Goku from Dragon Ball Z. Yeah.
Like, you spend a lot of money on that. That's the thing. You become an Instagram success just based on your cosplay alone. And then actually celebrityism within the geekdom community of actually going to cons and signing autographs as a famous cosplayer. I mean, it's a big business.
I know some people who used to do it and they're able to make a living, and but for me it just wasn't something I could see myself like devoting some all myself to.
Somebody said Nightwolf played Pac-Man back in the day.
It's been around for 41 years, it's saying.
Yeah.
You're telling your age and mine.
Yeah, I think I saw you one of those arcades back then. Okay, now let's move on because I got something I need to talk to
Yes.
you about. TOURIAN. Who is TOURIAN? And how did you put this together?
Well, originally, we can go back. Let's go back to March 2011. That's when I first wrote it. And when I wrote it, it was a tribute to this older Nintendo game called Metroid. TOURIAN, the name TOURIAN itself comes from that game. It's the last area you go to when you have to like beat the game and fight the final boss and things of that nature. Now, Metroid itself is based off of like the Alien movies, like Sigourney Weaver, Acid Blood, and all that. So, if you're a fan of that, you like, and then Metroid kind of follows in that suit. But originally, it was like I paid tribute to a point where like there wasn't too much of a difference between my character and the character from the game. But as time passed, I kind of thought to myself, you know what, I can do something really unique here. I could create a black girl superhero. I felt like there weren't too many. This is like 2011, so this is before like Black Panther and things of that nature. Where now we see like we're starting to see more African American perspectives on superhero stories. I mean, the superhero genre has definitely, become iconic within the last. We can go back to 2008, like become extremely iconic with movies like The Dark Knight, Iron Man, Joker,
Avengers,
like it's its own genre movie, and it's standing up to some of the best movies like Goodfellas, Godfather, Citizen Kane. It's standing up to those films in terms of merit and quality. And I grew up in the 90s. I was born in 89, but I grew up in the 90s and 2000s. So like superhero stuff, video games, comic books, I read them and I explored them. And it's just that as I got older, I realized there's not so many of these stuff that looks like me or focus on issues that are relevant to people who look like me. So I felt like, why not write something that could.
It was time.
Yeah.
It actually has been way past time. Now, you wrote a story before this that you let your mom read, right?
What I let my mom read a few things, so it's kind of.
Talk about all of them.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
All of them. I mean,
I got you now.
I mean, the ones like my mom read. I mean, my mom was read. I think she read one work that was like this guy. He wakes up and the world is different. And yeah, that's Metro right there. Perfect description right there. But this guy wakes up and his world is different. What else did my mom read? I think she read one where this guy gets a notebook where he can like control somebody's mind or whatever. He's in a wheelchair. Like, but that was back then when I was like, I wasn't seasoned as I am today and had a lot of.
How old were you? Tell the truth.
Okay, this was like 2010, 2009, 2010, 2011.
You were about 10 years old.
I'm 32 now. That was like my late teens, early 20s, like, but that was like back then. That was like summer 2010. That summer, on a whim, I stayed up to like 6 a.m. in the morning. I wrote a story. I just felt like it. I was listening to music. I just felt like writing something. It's like 9 o'clock at night. I just stayed up all night, listened to music, and I just wrote a story on a whim. So,
okay, so what's some of the music that you listen to? And what's some of your favorite groups? And what's that shirt you got on?
That in this picture, that's when I was at Miami University. Shout outs to them. I was in grad school. They're out in Oxford, Ohio. Grad school program, great people. That's my North Carolina A&T shirt. because I went to A&T, North Carolina A&T out in Greensboro, North Carolina, HBCU, Aggie Pride, of course.
Mhm.
Repeat the question again. What from again?
You
You
forgot?
have on it. You have a T-shirt on that's
Oh,
your favorite group.
music. I mean, music in general has played a big influence on me. I would
Stand.
say,
Let me see. Let's see that T-shirt. Stand up.
yeah.
Listen.
Shout outs to them. This rap group from Texas,
Okay.
old school rappers, but they're still great. But music in general to me has played a big influence on me and who I am and what I do. I can't name every single artist. I can talk for hours. And
So how did it play an influence on you?
I mean, music is a universal language. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. Like music is one of those things that perfect. I mean, yeah, that proves music is important to me. But
If anybody does not know who that is, that's Chance the Rapper, by the way, standing there. So with him, so you got a good taste in music, by the way.
yeah, but music is important to me. I mean, music is a universal language. It's something that no matter how old you are, ethnicity,
Yeah.
background, it's something that can connect people. Now we can debate or discuss which genres you prefer, but music is that universal connection that ties people in, and unite cultures, and allows people to express themselves, express issues that are relevant to them and relevant to society. But in regards to me, music has been the literal soundtracks to what I do. Like, I would sit for hours and listen to music and come up with ideas and craft stories. And so yeah, that in particular, if I were to narrow it down, I would say maybe 4 artists. I would say that I listen to a lot. It would be like Eminem, Queen, Drake, Outkast. Yeah, those 4 were the ones that when I was writing a lot, which I still do, but not as much as I did back then. They were the ones who the little soundtracks to what I do and the creativity and things of that nature.
I
So
like Eminem and Queen.
yeah, like Queen. It's crazy though, because like I didn't get into rock music until I was older. Growing up, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my mom used to play Prince and Michael Jackson a lot. That's pretty much, and like the Gap Band and what else? The OJs and the Isley Brothers and things of that nature. So like, but as I got older and I went to college, it kind of became like my music taste expanded because I met a lot of people who introduced me to a lot of different things like Daft Punk and Coldplay and
oh yeah, you like them too, huh?
yeah, Modest Mouse and just different Justice, like just different styles and types of music and like different genres that allow me to, because I feel like if you only listen to one specific genre of music, you'll never like understand like music in general, because music is that universal. Yeah, I listen to Jimi Hendrix too. He definitely.
Okay.
All on the Watchtower, definitely for sure. But
Jimmy was part of your heritage. Jimmy was a Cherokee.
That is nice to know. That is really nice to know.
Mm-hmm. I met him before he died.
You met him?
Yeah, amazing man.
You went to Woodstock?
Somebody named Lyron Cypress. She says, "Okay." A big okay.
She's the one that asked about Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, she's glad.
Uncle Jay, hey, sorry, did you go to Woodstock?
A what?
Woodstock.
Yeah, I was at Woodstock.
Nice.
I'm 75 years old, man.
Cool. I was curious because you said you met him. And I'm like, you met him. That means you probably went to Woodstock.
Yeah. That was the second time I met him. The first time I met him was at a Greyhound bus station in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Now, the stories of these people that you listen to their music, okay? Did that help you dive deeper into your creative mind?
Absolutely. Yeah, how? I mean, it was just like when I write, I like to have music playing, maybe not too loud, but just like have it playing,
Uh-huh.
and I'll just listen to it, and I'll just like the beat. Um, like and I've grown appreciation for beats over the years, and just when I listen to it, I try to like capture like a specific moment or idea and like flesh things out based upon that.
Mhm.
And that's how I describe characters, come up with moments, and come up with ideas. And music is generally playing in the background, and so like when I think of music, like for this story in particular, like going back to the UGK thing, like I was listening to the song by Bun B called "It's Been a Pleasure," and that song was like playing a lot. Because when I first wrote the story back in 2011, he had dropped an album like late 2010, and I was listening to it a lot, and so I just wrote how I felt, amongst other things that like among my writing process when I try to, you know, come with ideas, and it all just coincided. Thanks. I just when I come up with ideas, I try to think of stuff that can connect with people in terms of like how they feel, or like make a statement about society and things of that nature. Like even in this book, I talk about systemic racism and how
Mhm.
the school to prison pipeline is something that devastates
Yeah.
African American students. It sets them up for jail, and our prison system in this country in general is designed to punish people, particularly African Americans. I don't know if that's reading this.
Of color, people of color.
We'll say people of color, which is perfect. But that whole idea came from reading this book right here, Michelle Alexander.
Michelle Alexander.
Yep.
I read that book.
Yeah, I read it too, and I mean, it just talks about how our prison system is built to put people of color in bondage
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
keep them there.
Yeah.
I think what it is it's trying to diminish our spirit, which is something that if you think about people being indigenous to a particular place, indigenous to a particular place or land, to try to wipe that away. We're going to always have that connectivity there, but I think it's people that are powerful. It's something that they fear, so they try to wipe it out of us. But you can't. We're still here despite all of that. You know. I do have a question about TOURIAN. So when you wrote it, you wrote she's a female. So why didn't you choose to write it from a male perspective? What was it about this character that made you think about a female? And also, speaking of TOURIAN, what is her superpower?
Well, I mean,
I can tell you, you're going to have to read the book.
I mean, he can tell what the superpower is. He can tell what the superpower is. But I want to, because the journey is about how she discovers the superpower and her, her background. So that's what you're going to be reading about.
Yeah, that first chapter. Oh my God.
yeah.
I read the chapter twice. And she okay. So
Well,
anyway.
you gave me a twofold question. All right. Okay. Originally, like the game Metroid, the protagonist was a woman, so I just made it a woman just off the strength of that. So that's pretty much where that came from. It's just that I knew that if I was going to base off that character, I had to, be unique. I couldn't just take that character and make them African American. I feel like that's a thing that tends to happen. Like there's an African American part Puerto Rican Spider-Man. There's an African American like Green Lantern. I didn't want to take an established character and then just make like a African American. Like you could say that, but my character is still different, and she has her own identity and unique things about her. So the character's name is Whitney, and that comes from a friend of mine. Her name is Whitney, and I asked her could I use her name, and her last name comes from another friend of mine. His name is we call him Rich Boy, so his last name is Rich. So I just put those two together. But as time passed, it just became there aren't too many prominent Black girl superheroes out there, and I just felt like this character could be that.
Right. So
And
I notice in your book, in your acknowledgement, you says, a big thanks to Whitney. Thanks for allowing me to create this character along with your face and name. I had an idea and you allowed it to grow. There aren't enough words to show my gratitude. I am glad I received your honor to help craft this story.
yeah, she Whitney, I met her around with the A&T. I actually could use her face for picture because I was talking to an artist, uh, cool guy named William. He's out in North Carolina. He does like he's done work with Nike before, and I knew I needed a face, so I just asked her, and so she said yeah. So yeah.
Well, I got it. This is a great book, and everybody, you need to go online to Black Gold Publishing and get this book. Now, if I like this book, being 75 years old, I know you're going to like this book. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to buy some copies for some of my grandkids. This takes me back somewhere where I was.
You
Maybe.
can also purchase it on Amazon as well.
Yeah, Amazon as well.
Mhm. So, what really got to me was when TOURIAN visited her mother's grave. That's in the first chapter. I'm not going to give too much of it away, but it was actually a tear-jerking experience. She was talking to her mother through her grave. Right? Yeah. Uh-huh. And you're one talented young man.
Thank you.
So before we go any further, I want to say to you, Jaurice,
Yes.
that you're on your path.
Yeah.
And stay there. Don't let anybody take you off your path, because you are writing things that young people today need to see and read. This is like a book of directions for young people. Anybody ever tell you that? No.
No, I never thought of it that way. It was just I never looked at it that way. I just wanted to write something that I thought that I liked, and so if it becomes something big, that's appreciated. I mean, but I never looked at it as like a guide for young people. Now it is looked that way. I mean, that's great, but for me, it's just I like to write and I like to come up with ideas and tell stories and be connected with certain things. Like even going back to my competitive gaming days, all those people in that picture and like all the events I went to, just like those moments and just my life in general, there's always going to be some unique story or idea. And, like whether it be with family, friends, or, things of that nature. So there's always, a story there,
Right. So now when you're writing, do your characters speak to you before you name them, or do you create them yourself?
I guess it's kind of some names I feel like I come up with kind of based off like, things that inspired them. Like, for example, there's a character in the story. I had to change their name because it was too similar to like another character from like Street Fighter. Like,
right.
So I had to change his name. So it became something else. And, but yeah, I would say it's usually like, I try to like, if they're based off something or inspired by something, I try to like, look up stuff that's similar to it, or see like, for example, if I'm inspired by like, we'll go with Spider-Man, for example, and the actor's name plays him is Tom Holland, and I have a character that's inspired by Spider-Man, I'll try to come with some variation of like Tom Holland, or like Andrew Garfield, who played Spider-Man in like the other Spider-Man movies, like The Amazing Spider-Man. Some variation or mesh of like those two of those names, see if I can come up with a unique name.
Okay.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Leslie, you got
I do have a question. So the process to you getting published, what was that like? Did you submit your book to publishers and they just, they decided to take you on with it? How did that happen? And this is, I'm asking this for people who are also aspiring writers. What was your process like, and how did you manage to get publishing?
Well, in the beginning, I mean, I wrote the story over 10 years ago, so it was kind of sitting on standby, but I improved it over time. But I would say maybe like early last year, his name is Theodore. Well, I'll just call him that. I can't remember his full name. Right? His name is Theodore. He published a book with Black Gold Publishing, owned by Tahara. She's in the chat, so shout outs to her. And he told me to send it to her, and I sent it to her, and she was all with it, and you know, and so, and this just so happened around the time that she was all with it. COVID was in its infancy stages, and it got to a point where, you know, stay at home. So my publishing experience was extremely unique. Now, you can say they worked on a book during the middle of a pandemic, and on top of that, she's in Virginia Beach area. That publisher, Black Gold, out in Sova, Southern Virginia, as I call it, or Sova. But yeah, like, and I'm in Michigan right now, so it wasn't like I could drive down the street to go see her. It was like emailing and phone calls, and she had some stuff she was dealing with. I mean, amidst the pandemic, we all had it. So, but we were able to, you know, work on it, and they were helpful. Like, they were really helpful, and I appreciate them. Theodore, Tahara, Dwayne, they, you know, Black Gold, they're a family, and they definitely helped me improve my story because they helped me come with new ideas and scenes, things of that nature. So working with them was helpful. Just, if anybody out there trying to publish, hope you don't get caught up in the pandemic while you're trying to publish. That's all I'm gonna say. Because that definitely can make the process. I'm not gonna make it terrible, but definitely kind of make the process bizarre, because it's like, you know, pandemic, can't really go in the office.
It makes everything challenging.
Yep. And Takara could speak to that if she was here, but yeah. But she knows what the struggle was, like, you know, being in and out of office. But yeah, Black Gold, they're independent. They pretty much helped me do it independent. I work with them, but yeah, shout outs to them. Yeah.
Okay.
What is your goal now that you've published and now that you've written this? Is your goal now to do the con circuit once we come out of COVID? Do you want to make this a graphic novel? What is your purpose with this? Do you want to actually do a film, you know, with this character?
Well, I would love to go back to cons. Like, I haven't been able to go to any in years because, again, I was in school. And the last one I went to, and Fry, you might know, it's MagFest. That's the last one I went to. And I mean, I would love to go to stuff like that. There's BlurCon, there's Urban Anime Lounge. There's so many of stuff out there, especially for like people of color. They're starting to like build stuff for people of color at these events and things of that nature, so we can enjoy this stuff and just be ourselves and express our culture. I would love to do stuff like that. It's just, you know, with pandemic, still gotta wait.
Yeah. I mean, things are starting to slowly open up now. So, you know, they're doing more of a COVID-friendly type con, or I would say COVID compliant type cons now, but it's slowly starting to open back up now.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. It's just gonna take time for everything to be, you know, the way it was, as you know, because I've been to plenty of cons in my day, like in plenty of fests, and you know, there's so much opportunity and so many great things. And like the artist who drew that cover, William, I met him at a con. He drew a picture of a character from an anime called Naruto for me, like one of my favorite characters he drew on commission, and that was like back in 2014. And he's in the same boat as the publisher. He's not in Michigan. He's in Charlotte with his family. So that cover, how we were able to come up with that cover just off of email and communication. Yeah. Yeah.
I got a question for you. I hear that you got a commercial that's being developed for your book. Who's doing this for you?
That would be one of Vincent's friends, John. He produces and directs horror movies. Shout outs to him. He kind of wish I could hung out with him at MagFest, but alas, that didn't happen. But yeah,
I think he's going to end up being one of your uncles too.
yeah, I mean, he's a great dude. Vincent can testify. He's a great dude.
What's his name? John who? John Holmes.
John Holmes. Yeah.
He's the owner of Blood Rose Incorporated.
Yep.
And he's done quite a few major motion pictures.
Yeah, I mean, he mostly in the horror genre. Like mostly in the horror genre, because I know that's kind of his thing.
He's also the owner of Lucy Liu's sword.
From Kill Bill?
Yeah.
From Kill Bill?
Yep.
He has that sword?
He has that. And Vincent has seen it. I'm going to see it next week when I talk to John. So, yeah. And we're going to get him on the show too. He's done some amazing major motion pictures worldwide. Vincent,
I would have to connect with you because I do want to discuss that. I want to meet this guy.
Sure.
I kind of want to see that yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Not even for that, just for my own creative, perspective for my things that I'm doing outside of producing shows. I would love to meet this guy. I love horror films. I would love to have him on the Tingling Tea, which is part of the Cliff Dive franchises.
Exactly.
Anything for you, Leslie?
Thank you, Vincent.
You're quite welcome.
All right, that's enough.
That's my brother.
I know it.
That's it.
But what I want to say to you, Jaurice, is you got a great future ahead of you.
Yeah.
And I know Leslie with Cliff Dive Productions, me with Winter Nightwolf Live, we got your back. And of course your uncle. Of course. Yeah. So Leslie, can you take over for a few minutes? My dog is worrying me to death.
Yes, I will.
Let me let her out.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Don't go anywhere.
Leslie,
go ahead.
You had mentioned like a sequel or like seeing it adapted into like a movie or like a Netflix cartoon.
Right.
I can answer that.
Go ahead. I want to hear this.
Well, I mean, she's the only character I've written. I've written other characters. It's kind of like the Avengers in a sense where it's kind of like, Doctor Strange is, but they'll drop hints to like Captain America or Thor or whatever. And it's kind of, I do that in this book a little bit. Like I make references to other characters and other situations. And
so you're basically creating your universe right now. You're creating your universe with all your characters coming in.
Absolutely. And she was just the first one. So I figured she'd be the first one to get published. I mean, I have a character in Detroit. I have a character in Virginia Beach. I have a character in Atlanta. And you could say I have the Black Avengers in a sense. Mm-hmm. And they all have their own different abilities and backgrounds, whatever, and things of that nature. And I actually wrote the sequel to this one already. It's not at 100% yet. Mm-hmm. I have to go back and fix it. And plus, it's kind of like the Marvel movies in a sense where, you can't just watch Avengers Infinity War without at least knowing what happens in those other stories, because it kind of builds up to it. So those other characters will have to have their stories come out first. So yeah, I mean, but I've written. Yes, Tahar, I know it's exciting.
It is, Tahar.
We can discuss it and talk tomorrow. But yeah, I've written a lot of things. So I mean, but her story or sequels out. The only one I haven't written is where they all meet up, like the Avengers. So I mean, but that's
I think honestly that this should be more of a slow burn where you introduce each of the characters and then have them interweave into a storyline. I mean, you just can't create a whole universe overnight. People want to see more characters with more abilities, and they want to see this universe that you're creating. So I mean, she's the good start to that. I'm curious, based on what we've been seeing from Marvel and less than in DC, because they got rid of most of their Black characters, and we can go into a whole discussion about that. What did you think about Falcon and Winter Soldier? That whole storyline. Did you get to actually watch that? And
I did.
And what was your perspective on his narrative about being the first Black Captain America?
I mean, that character comes from the comics, like Isaiah Bradley. That's actually happened in the comics.
Right.
They created that as kind of reference, like the Tuskegee experiments, with the whole idea of like experimenting on Black people and things of that
like
nature.
the Tuskegee experiments,
Yeah,
basically.
That's where Isaiah Bradley's character kind of comes from. The idea of he didn't get a syphilis shot, he got the Winter Soldier shot. So not Winter Soldier.
But the thing is, despite the fact that he got the Winter Soldier shot, the thing is that they were not ready to receive a Black Captain America. And I think that that was the whole narrative of that show, was the fact that America was not ready for a Black Captain America.
Yeah.
He suffered through that. So in this universe that you're creating, is everybody in this universe of color? Or do we have different races? What do you see for this?
It's a modern day society, and speaking about issues like that, the sequel kind of touches on the idea of, as a Black superhero, what do you mean to like other Black people and things of that nature. So the sequel does touch on that idea of like, as a Black person and as a superhero person, abilities, like who are you and what are you doing for your people and for your community? So It's interesting that you brought that up. So yeah, the sequel kind of touches on that, and I will, again, that story is not ready to be published. It was terrible. Mm-hmm. Okay, since you're receiving your MFA, and are you writing full time? I guess you could say that. Yeah, I mean, I'm dealing with some other things, but writing is pretty much my main job now. And I mean, I want to get into like teaching creative writing, but it's just the pandemic is kind of, so universities aren't really open. So
that'll come, believe me, because they need your talent, your intellect, and your abilities in the classroom, along with everything else you're doing.
Yeah.
So don't ever just tie yourself down to one thing. But you better not give up writing. That's from your uncle, okay?
Of course. I mean, it's what I devoted myself to.
Are you thinking about doing any type of screenwriting outside of novel writing? Are you thinking about doing other types of creative writing?
I mean, I want to get like a short story compilation. Screenwriting, I would have to like do research on that, because it's a different format as opposed to like traditional book writing. There's a lot that goes into that. I actually wanted to do screenwriting at one point, but then I just realized I rather focus on like traditional creative writing. So
okay. Now I got a question for you. In your future endeavors, now that you know, well, you already knew it, that you're Cherokee and Black, I think it's time for a native Black hero.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to carry that torch, first I have to do research on it. I don't want to just write something like, even with this book. And
you got your uncle. I'll help you.
Yeah, even with this book, I did research, because I mean, I'm a guy. I mean, writing from a woman's perspective as a guy, I had to do research. So this book right here, I read this.
Hold on one second. Let me pull you up in this so that people can see what you just read. Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It told me a lot about, a lot of things that Black women face, American Black women face, and it's hard as a question. It's hard, my publish. I have a question first. What inspired and create what other ties in African culture aliens? Why was this juxtaposition important? I mean, it came from a game, and that's where the alien part comes from. But I feel like, when it comes to stuff like that, I mean, Afrofuturism is definitely a growing genre.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been around, but Black Panther really put a spotlight on Afrofuturism.
Yeah.
Well, let's just call it as it is. Being older than you are, being Black and a geek back in the day was not two things that you want to say that you were. And now it's a lot more acceptable. Now they're coming out. The geek community within the Black community is coming out. There are pages dedicated to it. We have our own cosplay. We have Facebook pages and stuff like that. But they're back in the day, those two things, you could not say that you were. You were definitely going to be beat up.
Yeah, well, I was confronted when I was like 18 years old, they said, "You're a geek," and that ended up in a fist fight. I won.
You always win.
I mean, times have changed, and I'm glad. I just, to go back to Horace's question, like, I, I mean, I wanted that character to kind of like, because part of the story is her being a lawyer, but her not feeling like confident in herself, and so the alien kind of gives her, not gonna say gives her confidence, but kind of allows her to like dig deep and find it already in her, and it allows her to overcome challenges. So in terms like Afrofuturism, Afro sci-fi, that genre is rich with like us, and I'm a part of that officially now. And we look at like Octavia, is Octavia Spencer?
Octavia Butler.
Octavia Butler. I mean, Kindred, Parable of the Sawyer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's iconic. So yeah, like
She was the first Black sci-fi writer that I ever read. I have a couple of her books behind me in my library, and
she's a great writer. She's a great
writer. On top of all of that, I think my inspiration was actually physically seeing it on Star Trek and seeing a Lieutenant Aurora on Star Trek, and just saying, "Oh, it's okay for me to love this genre and to be a part of a sci-fi world." A futuristic sci-fi world where Black people exist and that they stay and they have the same, responsibilities as anybody else, that does not seem to be different. That was inspirational in that. I mean, the beginnings of a lot of things for us as Black people within the sci-fi community, period.
Yeah. I mean, if I can be a part of that, I mean, that makes me, if somebody can look at that and get the same feeling you got, somebody look at what I wrote and get the same feeling you got from looking at like Star Trek, then I mean, my work is done. I mean, it all just came inspired from a video game at the end of the day. I mean, I didn't do it to like, make some deep issue. I mean, unless you want to count talking about stuff in this book. Yeah, I did. I'll admit that. But like everything else is just, I was inspired by a video game. A lot of my work is inspired by video games and like music and things of that nature. And I mean, so
we all had our influences. In my day, it was, no, I'm not going to say Pac-Man again. It was early sci-fi. And then, of course, the Temptations. It's music. And music is the message. The one thing good about music is that we can all sing together and agree, but we can't all talk at the same time. And music, like you said, is a universal language.
yes.
Yeah. So Tahara does have a question. We're about a minute away from wrapping up the show, but she said, you're leading the Black female protagonist in Afrofuturistic spaces. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's a great feeling. I mean, like I said, Whitney's story is far from over. She's gonna meet other people that I've already written. I just haven't, their stories aren't out yet, which I have to talk to Tahara about. And her sequel is done, but it's gonna have to be fixed, which I'm gonna talk to Tahara about again. So it's like her story is far from over, and again, for me, I look at it as, in terms of storytelling, like seeing our faces, seeing people of color in these genres is always a great feeling. And if I can contribute to that, then, that's a great feeling. I mean, like I said, I was born in the 80s, but I'm a child of the 90s. I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z, 2000, Naruto. Like my older brother, he got me into rock music, but when we look at stuff like that, I mean, actually, I know the truth behind rock music. I mean, people of color created it: Buddy Guy, Muddy Waters, Chuck Berry, Jimi Hendrix.
Yes,
of course we created,
yes,
but
we did. Yes, we did.
Control everything, but we know that.
And native Blacks created it. It started with Charlie Patterson. I want to say something, and Atara says that she said that Octavia would be proud. She'd be truly proud of what you're creating, especially when you're creating this universe. You have not created a white universe where Black people live. You created a Black character where people of color are driving the narrative here and not the other perspective. And, you know, congratulations for that. And I also want to give a shout out to Arnold Murray. He just became our Patreon supporter. Thank you so very much, Arnold.
Yeah. Love you, bro.
Yeah.
Whitney,
I mean, she's in a modern day society. She's you know, she's not like in a different universe. It's kind of like the Marvel movies, like we know they live in New York, but like they live in like a modern day New York. New York isn't like different or special or like, you know, bizarre. It's modern day. So, but I guess to explain a little bit, and I guess it's past 8 o'clock. I said in California for a reason, because it was kind of like I didn't want it to be in New York, because like most superheroes, like, you know, Punisher, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, they're all in New York, so I kind of wanted to avoid that. So I picked LA for the West Coast.
Okay. Next time you'll pick a spot on the Mississippi River.
So I just wanted to say something to our audience. Please go out and purchase this book. And like we said, that you can go on Amazon and purchase it. Support this young man in his endeavor as far as creating this universe, and, you know, buy it for your children and everything like that. You know, I can't wait to read this book.
And when you buy this book, sit down and read it to your children. Okay. That's something that's missing. I remember when I was a little boy, my mother would read to my brother and I all the time. And that's why we learned so much about what was outside the house that we lived in. So I just want to say again to you, Larry, I know you're going to be down here in a few weeks, right?
Yes, I am.
So we got to sit out back and talk.
Of course.
And Leslie, I am so happy that you're on the show with me. You have no idea. You know I love you, right?
Love you too. I love you too.
Yes, thank you, Leslie.
You're very welcome.
We need everybody that's looking at this tonight to go on YouTube and like Winter Nightwolf Live. And what do they do then, Leslie?
Subscribe, comment, and even share the content. We have other shows on Winter Nightwolf Live. Either you can go onto Jay's YouTube page, or you can go onto Cliff Dive Productions and get some of the content that's on there.
Absolutely. So, Jaurice, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Uncle Jay. Thank you.
It's the first time I had a chance to talk to you face to face and not sit next to you. But I like the other way better. Leslie, you are a jewel.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Love you.
Thank
you, Jaurice. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you.
So I will leave you with these same closing thoughts because they last forever. My grandfather used to always tell us that your brother or your sister don't have to look like your sister. And that it makes no difference about the pigmentation of your skin, the texture of your hair, or the clothes you wear, or who you worship and call God. It's not about any of that. What it's really all about is how you treat my heart. So let's get on with it. Start talking to each other instead of at each other. And then you'll find that people are different wherever you go. Thank you so much for being on, Jaurice. And thank you a whole lot, Leslie.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We'll be back again next Wednesday, same bat time, same bat channel. Don't go anywhere.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. I see ya.